And we're live. All right. Welcome, Dr. Andrew, to the Fempreneur podcast. One of the few dudes I've had on the show, so you should feel very honored.
Oh,
Super excited to have you here.
thank you very
You
much
are
for
a
having
new author. You have 3 kids. You're married to one of my favorite humans, Felicia. She has Real
me.
Awesome Productions. Tell us a bit about your journey to kind of discovering your career path, and then you can tell us about your book.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I am a First Nations male, and I'm from like Wolastoqey territory back in New Brunswick. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I grow up, and I was just kind of speed skating, having a good time. Came out to Calgary to pursue my dreams when it came to that. And I met a nice girl. Her name was Felicia. Ended up marrying that girl. Lucky for me. And it was and then basically we kind of the speed skating thing didn't work out, but I ended up finding some free pizza at some point, and that kind of led me into a talk about getting into medicine. And just listening to them talk and seeing someone that was studying philosophy just like me, and realizing that that was a possibility for me, allowed me to think that, yeah, maybe I can do that. And so looked into it. Took a lot of hard work, but it ended up working out, and I got into medicine and went through medicine, and really liked my time talking with other people, hearing their stories, helping them out, and doing what I can to try and understand their struggles, and do what I can to help them out. And then I ended up choosing psychiatry as my specialty. And then in the end, I really enjoyed working with youth and hearing and helping youth out. And because I'm First Nations, just, the impact that those, like the intergenerational trauma, childhood adversity, and those other kind of things that have impacted Indigenous and First Nations youth here in Canada. That really that, along with my, my desire to work with kids and my skill in working with them as well, led me towards that path of like, I think I can make a big difference in a lot of people's lives if I focus on this area of medicine. And so,
Right. And so, okay, so quick recap. So speed skating, free pizza. I want to know more about that, and
yeah.
then into medicine. So can you tell me more about that little, discovery of I could be a doctor and how that free pizza thing ties into that?
Yeah, for sure. It was a unique part of my story just because I love food, one, and I loved pizza before I became like very lactose intolerant. Uh, and and my if there was ever free food, that's what I was going for. And so I kind of lucked out, and life kind of put me that way where I wanted some free pizza. They had a sign for free pizza, and I just walked in, grabbed some pizza, and listened to what they were talking about. And I had just finished speed skating at that time. I'd kind of put my all into speed skating. I'd said, like, dedicate myself to speed skating for the next year. If I make this competition, I'm going to continue speed skating and try and, go to the Olympics, all this kind of stuff. And if I don't, then I'm going to quit right away. So I didn't make that competition. I did not make the senior team, and I quit that day, and I haven't speed skated competitively since then. So, but then there kind of became this journey of like, well, what am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been studying philosophy. I don't know what my life was going to look like outside of speed skating. And so, luckily, I had met Felicia at that point, and we were just kind of getting to know each other, and I was just exploring different options, and that's how the free pizza came up, and that just kind of triggered something in me and put me on this journey. And so then,
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry for obsessing over the free pizza, but like, what was the free pizza event? Like, who was doing this talk or whatever?
yeah, it was University of Calgary. They were putting on the medical school of University of Calgary was putting on an event to tell people about medicine, to encourage them to apply and get into medicine. And they had several students up on the stage talking about their experiences, what they had done before medicine and coming into medicine. And they were just up there talking about their experiences. And so I went in there, heard someone that was kind of, hey, he's doing what I did. And I didn't even know that was a possibility. So as soon as my mind knew that was a possibility, it was like, okay, let's see what that's like.
Okay, awesome. So free pizza, and then you learned about the opportunity to become a doctor, a medical physician, and here you are. You've jumped through all the hoops, you've done all the training, you're living the dream. So, when I first met Felicia, you were still in medical school.
Yeah.
And so fast forward from then to now, you've finished, you have written a book called
Yeah.
Big Hearted Parenting. Tell us more about the more recent phases of your career advancements and the hard work you've been putting in.
Yeah, and so I got into psychiatry. I got my residency out here in Calgary, and that was kind of where Felicia's family is, and that's really worked out nicely. Where we were able to kind of settle in and start a family, and we had our first child, Aurora, when we were just during my training period, and we were still in the process of just trying to figure what's everything looking like for our family. And we started growing, and had Aurora, and then Gwyneth, and that was during my training, and that was a really eye-opening experience for me of like, just how hard it is to be a parent and do balance all of those things like work and being in a relationship and being a father and being part of a family. And that was interesting for me because as I was going through that in my personal life, I was also learning more about like, mental health, mental illness, mental disorders, and all of these other things. And then when I got interested in working with young kids, learning more about development and what is important for kids and what's helpful for kids. And that was a really neat to start to see what my kids were doing. And then all of the literature and the things that have been out there for looking at child's development and what do they need and what's important for children, and then getting to see some very challenging cases where you see young kids really struggling these days with like their mental health, and some of that comes from their home environment, other times it doesn't, and it's a blend for each person as to like what's going on and who that person is. But for me, I saw a lot of struggles with some families just on how to regulate emotions in the family as a whole. And so trying to figure out, like, I thought that would be a really good area to start with intervention, especially after, and I kind of talked about this in the book, seeing this mother yelling at her child in the parking lot of a mall, and basically essentially just screaming at him, and then eventually just picking him up and carrying him over to the car and putting him in the car and then driving away. And I was like, okay. I don't get to see that every day in my work. I get to see the end result of that. But seeing it in person, I was like, okay, like, I'm sure that's the common experience. Like, I'm sure this is not a uncommon experience for a lot of parents. And I thought, just the more I looked into it, the more I felt, and the more I saw clinically, the more I felt that this is an area where we could actually have a big benefit to kids and kids' mental health, is that if we can create those really positive childhood experiences and move more away from that adversity really early on, I think that is one area where we could really have a big impact as a society and as clinicians as a whole. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, well, I'm curious to know where, like, at what point the book idea became like not just an idea or I should or could do that, but I am doing that, and I know what I want to put in the book. Like, even if you knew the first 3 or 4 concepts that had to be in your upcoming book, like, tell us about that phase of the progression.
Well, and it's interesting, and I think this is kind of where our stories align, because ever since Felicia got connected with you and saw, like, look at you do, like, you're doing all these amazing things, like writing all these books and doing so many cool things, like, she was like, oh, kind of like me with medicine, it's like, oh, maybe I could do that too.
Yeah.
And she wrote her book, and that was a big process for her, and she went through that whole thing, and I was watching her the whole time, just being like, wow, that's amazing. And then seeing the final product of like a book, and I was like, wow, that's so, it was really cool to see, someone that be able to make something like that, because you kind of imagine like these authors that like, I don't know what it was, but I just like feel like they had like some kind of magical power to create a book, or like that took like so much skills that I didn't have, and to see someone go through it, and then I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I could do something like that too.
Yeah.
And not as extensive as her book, Don't Stay a Secret, but this was kind of my version to help out parents who might be struggling, don't have a whole lot of time on their hand, and what can we do to help them out in that situation.
Yeah, quick plug for Felicia's book and of course Andrew's book. Links to purchase both of them are in the show notes. They are both on Amazon. And Felicia's book, so Felicia, for those of you who don't know her, she worked for over a decade, I think, as a like professional TV producer and a news anchor for CTV News. She produced like a couple documentaries. Like, maybe you can correct me if I'm saying any of that wrong, but she's a friggin' rock star in the videography and just film production world.
Yeah.
Also helping people share their stories in video, because as entrepreneurs, that's a huge hurdle for a lot of us to get comfortable in front of the camera, and that's her expertise. And she's a coach, and she does the actual technical stuff, and she wrote a book about it.
Yeah, and it's been amazing. Like, she does have that like extensive history of like so much experience of working in the field of journalism and anchoring and really presenting herself in such a great way on camera. And she's got such a presence, and it was always so funny because like she would get comments, blind people would call into the CTV where she was working, and she's like, I just love your voice. Like, they couldn't get enough of her voice, and I get it, I know.
Yeah,
but it was just so interesting. Like, the people just loved her presence online, vocally and visually, and she's taken that and really distilled it into her book. But also, like you said, she was just coaching someone the other day, and is trying to help out realtors and creating videos for like she takes headshots for like dental practices, and she's helping out a ton of people, and in terms of like making videos, but also coaching people on how to make videos for themselves too. And that's she's actually helping me with that too. Like, she's actually been helping me create online content and trying to help me how to show up online in a good way. And so this setup's all.
Did she prepare that setup behind you?
Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah.
Cluttered the toys, and
yeah, she did.
It looks spectacular.
Yeah,
it looks kind of like a fake backdrop. So
I know. So it's
pretty impressed. Yeah, she knows her stuff. She's a rock star videographer, photographer, coach, all the things, and she's a mom of 3 kids. So she's like literally my hero. So, so tell us more about, you're watching Felicia writing her book. You're also, learning all this stuff about, psychiatry and kids who are struggling with mental health, et cetera, et cetera. At what point were you like, I'm writing a goddamn book? Like, at what point were you like in fully, I'm doing it?
Yeah. And I think it was after Felicia came out with her book, but it was fun. I think it was on a flight where we were traveling back to Fredericton, where I'm from, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna start putting ideas down. I had some time. Like, luckily, Felicia was done her book, so she had 3 kids in the chairs with her, and I was just kind of sitting on my own trying to support her. But all these ideas were just starting to come up for me about like, if I were to write a book, what would that look like? And I didn't know what the book was going to be, and I didn't know like what it was called or what the content would be, but I just started like putting ideas down, and I started like thinking like, if I could write a book, like what would that book look like? And what would I want in that book? And what are the stories that I would tell? And what are some interesting things that I've seen clinically, or things that have happened as a parent myself? And through that process of just like, not really knowing what the end goal was, or knowing what I was going to be created, I just started creating. And then it slowly, and then I got connected with a book coach, Shane Fielder. Big shout out to him. And he's been amazing in terms of helping both me and Felicia out with Samurai Innovation. And he's been fantastic. And I'm actually going to start coaching with him again to help, build this thing up, and he was kind of helped me shape some of the ideas and talking about, like, what are the things that are good and what are the things that are bad. So having that coach really helped out as well.
Yeah.
Someone kind of guide you, person who's written a book, my wife, and then a coach who really knows the rest of the process of that, and has gone through it many times. And so I think those connections made a huge difference for me.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and I say this all the time, and you know too, obviously, that investing in a coach it's essential, and they help you get to the end result faster and more confidently. So
Yep.
people who are afraid to invest in themselves when they're trying to do something big like that, I think they're just shooting themselves in the foot. So that's a quick plug for hiring coaches, no matter what it is you're doing. Um,
I
is
agree.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share around maybe just tips for getting started with writing a book?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I, and it's funny because it's so interesting because because you wrote a book, Felicia wrote a book. Because Felicia wrote a book, I wrote a book. Because I wrote a book, my friend's writing a book now.
Oh, cool.
It's this really interesting thing. You never know, like, what impact you doing something is going to have on the people around you.
Yeah.
But for me, like, it was like, kick the fear and just write. Like, you just do something, because
What
it's
about
like,
fear? Like, talk about the fear. What were you actually afraid of that you had to push through, or you had to stop, like, listening to it or whatever?
well, and I think the biggest, like, it evolved over time, but I think what it distilled down to when we got really into the meat of the writing, where I was like, I don't know about this, and I don't know if I should put this book out, was really the fear of judgment from
Mm.
other people. Especially being in my field, which is very, like, evidence based, and where you've got my colleagues who are doing amazing work out there, other child and adolescent psychiatrists, other psychiatrists. They're doing really amazing work, and for me, it was a big fear. Like, what if they criticize that? What if they think, that's stupid, or this is a dumb book, or like, why would you waste your time on this? And it's like, or it's not like, there's not enough evidence in that. It's not like a journal article or something like this. And that's kind of the gold standard in our field of, like, doing a randomized control trial and then writing a paper on that. And I'm just like, it's not really my thing. But knowledge translation, taking what I've learned and trying to distill that down for families and people who are busy, and educating people about mental health in a way that they can comprehend and take apart into small bites, and really help them. Like, that was something that's meaningful for me. And that was one way that my brain worked and allowed me to kind of push through any of that. And Shane, and my coach, he was always coaching me, like, think about the people that this could be helping. Like, if you end up doing this, like, think about all of the people you could be helping. And for me, that's something that's really important, is helping other people. And so those kind of help push me through those challenges around, just that fear of like putting something out there and potentially being critiqued.
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same experience with my coach that had written a few books, which is why I had hired him to be my coach. And yeah, he was like, if you just help 5 women, my first book
Mm.
is called Money and the 39 Forever Mom. And it's kind of like a personal financial coaching book for women, and for women 39 and over. And he was like, if you just help 5 women with this book,
Yeah.
um, how awesome will that be, and how worth it will that feel, and if you can just think about those women that you're writing it for, and like, they're basically all clones of each other, and if you just stay focused on them and know that you're going to have a positive impact in their life, maybe not a huge positive impact, but like a positive impact.
Right.
And so yeah, I just had to stay focused on that, and I had to stay focused on that, because if I didn't, my mind would creep over to, like you said, what about the judgy Judgersons and all the negative Nancys? Because it's like, you have to focus on one or the other, and
Yeah.
it's a choice, right? What am I going to choose to focus on? So yeah.
It's so true. And I think that it's just really like, where does your attention go, and how is that going to help you? Does it help you or hurt you? And
Yeah.
I know for me, it was like, just trying to get out of that. Like, I love that you're like, think about those, like just a few people. Like if I can help one person, if I can help two people, and this is with big hearted parenting, like what I always dreamt of when I was writing it is like, well, it was part of like to help me out clinically as well.
Yeah.
Because like, well, what would the things that I would say to parents if I could spend 2 hours with them talking about them, like what would be helpful for them in raising kids, like what would I say to them? And so I took that idea and I said, this is like, that's what I put in the book. That's, if I could, because I don't have 2 hours to spend with every family to talk about what I could do. So what I do now is, because I wrote the book, I just, here's a copy of my book, go read it. So it's really just about helping those families out, and sometimes when people have taken that information and used it, and sometimes they'll come back and they'll be like, things are going so much better. Like actually I'm not yelling as much. I'm really getting along with my kids. Things are going really well. And that just, it fills my heart to hear that. And so I'm really glad that I got pushed through that. I'm glad that we pushed through the fear, because just because of the reward. And I've seen that, and I've seen it help people and the results from that. And so it's been really, really a nice experience.
Yeah, and you've been doing a lot of speaking since the book came out, it sounds like, or at least, and you're heading out somewhere tonight to do some speaking as well, right?
Well, not for speaking. This is actually more for like clinical work and part of my job, because I also work in New Brunswick as well. And so, yeah, but that's mainly for that one. But I have been doing some more speaking gigs, trying to just learning that new skill as well, for like public speaking and talking about the information I want people to know about this book and other things as well. And so it's definitely a new thing that I'm trying to get used to, and it's been pretty cool to go do it, but it's also a new level of stress.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I gotta talk about. So okay, I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit with this one, but like pretend you're standing in a room full of parents who have come to hear you speak. Give us a little sneak peek of what that would look like. What kind of things are you gonna talk about? Like, how does your speech or your talk kind of go? Not the whole thing, but maybe give us a bit of it.
When I was born, no. But no, essentially, like what I would be sharing with families and talking with them about is that, just empathizing with a lot of their experience. That, like I said, because I've been through this, I'm going through this with parents. I know this is hard. I know what this is like. I'm doing it myself, and I see the roadblocks, and I see the barriers that come up, and the stumbling that happens throughout the process. And that's, for me, like why, like what is a big hearted parent? And that's someone who just like really loves their kid, or really cares for their kid, wants to see the best for them, and make sure that they've got, a really awesome, caring, kind kid, and really doing their best. And so you're not perfect. Nobody is, but it's how do we shift things from, the struggles that we're having now to where we can be potentially in the future, and what are the skills that we're going to need to get there. And I think for me, it really does distill down into like emotional regulation. Like our emotions can be a good guide for, what we want to see in the world, what we want in general. Because that's what emotions are. They're bits of information that they're trying to get you to do something. But the problem happens is when, those things start to run our lives, or it gets out of control, and then we start to act out on those emotions. And that becomes the only source of information. I'm angry, I'm frustrated. You won't stop. You won't get off your phone. You won't get off. You won't do your homework. You won't clean your dishes or clean your room. And then that emotion just builds up for people, until the point where, it can come out in some ways where it's like shutting down and, shutting people out, or it could be like yelling and getting people to try and change their behavior by yelling at them. And so what I walk through them with the book is that, the first thing is recognizing what's going on here. Like, are you yelling? What are the things that lead to your yelling? How what does your yelling look like? Is it just raising your voice, or is it like calling your kids names, or berating them, or things like that? Becoming aware of the behavior, and then stepping in and taking a break from that. The sooner you can recognize that is about to happen, and the sooner you can stop it and just take a break, you can actually have a huge impact in terms of not causing any further damage. And then you can start the repair process. But we can't fix things until we stop the thing that is hurting us or our families.
Right.
The rest of the book just kind of like walks through, like, taking a 1, 2, 3 yelling break. What is that? Connecting with your kids, and how do you do that more effectively, and discussing things and finding out more about your kids and talking with them and improving communication. That's really the book right there.
Cool. That's great. That's a tool that I definitely could use even now. And I do have your book. It's downstairs in my office. But do you have a copy right there with you to hold
They're
up?
here. Boom.
Okay, I should have asked you a long time ago. There it is, everybody. Isn't that a beautiful book?
I know.
Yeah, congratulations on taking all of that knowledge and expertise and passion for improving, the lives of so many people, and putting it into a book, because I know it is hard, and you did it, and that's great. And you probably already have a second book up here ready to go, right?
Yeah, multiple, which is kind of the cool part, because I think the first one's the hardest one. I haven't written a second book, but I can see that, and I know just in general, like from my speed skating or just from life, the more you do something, the easier it gets.
Yes.
And I don't know, has that been your experience?
Oh,
yeah. You've written multiple books now.
Yeah, 6 now. And
Wow.
it is true. It just gets easier and easier. Yeah.
So you probably have like 20 books in your head right now waiting to write those.
I want to write a novel next, so
Oh.
I think I'm taking a break from writing books about marketing and for fempreneurs, and I want to write a book that's more about, actually similarly to kind of some of the content that you were just talking about, just some things from my life and just some things that I've seen, and turn it into a novel.
That's super cool. That's really a new challenge.
Yeah. Well, my son graduates high school in a couple months, and then I feel like my life is going to have a little more free time in it. So I think I might take that on in the fall.
Cool. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congrats.
It'll be exciting. But anyways, I know you're a super busy guy. I also know that you are available to speak about the book, and you have done some speaking to men's groups and different things like that. So reach out to Andrew if you're looking for a speaker at your next event that is a family-oriented or parenting event, and get his book. The link is in the show notes, and connect with him. Is LinkedIn where you hang out most, or YouTube, or where's your top social channel?
Probably
kind of a work in progress.
Probably more in the work in progress category.
Okay.
I mostly spend my time on YouTube anyway. I have a bit of I used to be more Facebook, but with having 3 kids, life gets busy, and you got to pick which things you're going to stay focused on. And social media was not necessarily one of those things, as trying to work and write a book and do all these other things. It's taxing.
Yeah. Do you have your own YouTube channel where you're posting videos and stuff?
Yeah, I have. There's one channel. There's the TikTok channel that we have.
Yeah.
I have posted some other videos, but I haven't really done too much in terms of like posting lately.
Right.
But mental wealth doc, or mental wealth, and I think it mostly just goes under my name.
Okay.
And but that's kind of the main one that we were posting to originally, and I'll probably start posting again once we start getting some more content and start doing a few more things. I gotta let a few other things go, but once we get that sorted out, then I'll probably start.
Okay, and I know that your website is up and it's awesome. It's drandrewdutcher.com, and I think there's a way to subscribe or something on there, or a way to connect with you. I can't remember. But so get connected with Andrew if you are interested in learning from him. And I think we're probably just at the beginning of your social media and online presence growth. So it's going to be exciting to see you soar and write more books and do more speaking and change, thousands more lives every day. So Thanks so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave our Fempreneur listeners with?
I don't know. I think that conversation around fear is just, that's an important one. Like, I think, there's lots of reasons not to do something. And I think, if you've got something inside of you that's calling you to do something, I think you should listen to that. And I think that finding a good why to push through all of the hows is going to be really important.
Great. Yeah, I love that. All right, Fempreneurs. So Dr. Andrew says, do not be afraid to do those hard things. It's worth it, and you'll be really glad you did. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks so much. Okay, bye.